Hello, 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 everyone. And I want to thank you so much for joining us for tonight's meeting. My name is Lady Breon. I am the Executive Director of the Pennsylvania Avenue Black Arts and Entertainment District. I am also a professional spoken word poet in the city. This is a part of our strategic planning process, in which we're currently undergoing. This meeting is designed to be a share back session about the information we gathered from community members and stakeholders. So please feel free to share any thoughts or ideas with us that you may have as we move through tonight's conversation. As the Black Arts District, we strive to be very intentional about centering Black art, entertainment, and cultural production in everything that we do. So before we jump into tonight's meeting, we would like to share a video called Tribe. This song was written by Baltimore's own Akila Devine, and the video was produced and shot and directed by Baltimore's own Mace Tendaji Lester, who is the founder and director of Iconic Visions Multimedia Group. So please enjoy this video, and we will be right back with our conversation.
All lives matter.
8 minutes and 46 seconds.
All lives do matter, don't they? When the looting starts,
All lives matter.
all lives matter.
8 minutes and 46 seconds.
All lives do matter, don't they?
Don't they?
Don't they? All lives do matter, don't they?
What happened?
Which would like to, quote, get back to normal. As a pandemic and an economic crisis upend everything around us, but we have to remember that for millions of Americans, being treated differently on account of race is tragically, painfully, maddeningly normal. Whether it's while dealing with the healthcare system or interacting with the criminal justice system or jogging down the street or just watching birds in a park.
Floyd's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds.
Brianna Taylor, who would have turned 27 today. Back in March, she was shot 8 times while she slept in her bed in Louisville.
Just last week, the officer who shot and killed Philando Castile was acquitted.
It's Trayvon Martin, Oscar Grant, Freddie Gray, Tamir Rice,
Sandra Bland.
Michael Brown.
John Crawford.
Don't you fall asleep now. You must stay woke. Don't you fall asleep now. You must stay woke. I'm the pick of the lid, the umbilical cord got cut with the scissors. Mom and daddy only raised up winners. I came out of sprint in a meter dash. You need me for that. I'm never looking back, cause these odds are stacked against me. They got modern day lynching, but y'all still won't pay attention. Too busy flexing on Instagram for those who don't give a damn. Say your soul to your Uncle Sam. Don't know who you are, so you can't expand. Much larger than what we see. When our third eye black, so we don't believe. Tell you God is a mystery. Like he ain't man and more blacker than dirt. Like he didn't cultivate earth. Why gotta be like that? Testing on us like lead rats. Then we get stuck in your track. Work a whole damn life to pay tax. Damn, why I gotta be like that? Testing on us like lead rats. Then we get stuck in your track. Work a whole damn life to pay tax. Don't you fall asleep now. You must stay woke. Don't you fall asleep now. You must stay woke. Haven't you heard it? It's open season, they killing us and not giving reasons. Then granny left to clean up the bleed and left you alone in your broken home. 2 shots in the chest and 1 to the dome. That's how you kill 2 birds with a stone. Little do you know that your soul lives on. Bottles popped and balloons are flown. Who will right this wrong? Not the one with the bad jaw. Who will fix this hurt? Subside the stress. Got a lot built up and we won't confess. So we crave the weed, need the lick, fiend for drugs. Who forgets? Call the plug. I can't quit. They say love still exists. I can't tell. Give me some. Give me that vitamin D. Follow it up with plan B. Birth control. Rest that soul. Birth control. Rest that soul. Give me that vitamin D. Follow it up with plan B. Birth control. Rest that soul. Birth control. Rest that soul. But why gotta be like that? Testing on us like lead rags. Then we get stuck in your track. Work a whole damn life to pay tax. Damn, why gotta be like that? Testing on us like lead rags. Then we get stuck in your track. Work a whole damn life to pay tax.
Bro, you got him down, man. Let him breathe, least, man.
All right. So thank you all again for those of you who have joined us. That was a song called Tribe, written by Akila Divine. And again, it was produced by Mace Tendaji. So I really appreciate the message in the song. I feel like it's so timely. It's definitely been making its rounds, getting a lot of attention and promotion. And so we just want to bow our heads and tip our hats to Akila Divine for the work that she's doing, and shout out to just all the amazing creatives in the city. So moving things right along, I want to take a second and welcome up the community engagement consultant with our strategic planning team, Saida. All right, so Saida, thank you so much for joining us. If you want to take a second and introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much. And also, that was an incredibly powerful video. I feel like every time I'm around you, Brianna, I get to see some new art in Baltimore that I didn't know about already. So it's already a gift. Hi, I'm Saida Agostini. I use she, her, and hers pronouns. I'm an artist based in the Baltimore area. And it's been really exciting to work with Brianna and the entire Pennsylvania Avenue Black Arts and Entertainment District. We'll be talking a little bit today about the community engagement strategy and what we found out in the process of learning a little bit more about the needs of folks in Baltimore, specifically artists, makers, DJs, chefs, whatever you can think of, as well as residents who live in the Pennsylvania Avenue Arts District. And so I just wanted to take a little bit of time just to kind of talk through just some information about the community engagement process. So we had over 130 people participate either in surveys where we asked folks about what would be their priorities in the Black Baltimore art scene, as well as thinking about what are the needs of folks who actually live within the Pennsylvania Avenue Black Arts and Entertainment District. We did this through a series of storytelling sessions where folks got together and just did some really beautiful dreaming and storytelling about what was happening for them and also what were their needs that were urgent, as well as doing stakeholder interviews and also a survey. And through the survey, we had about 83% of folks who participated either lived or worked in Baltimore, and 80.6% of the folks who participated were Black. And there was a lot of really rich and juicy information that we got. And actually 5 major themes emerged from the data collection process. So one, we found that marketing and community engagement was a major priority, right? So really thinking about how is it we make sure that the incredible and beautiful work that the Black Arts District is doing is really getting uplifted, and folks within, like, who really live within that district know about what's going on and feel connected to it. And then folks talked a lot about barriers to Black cultural programming. So I think everyone that we spoke to and had the opportunity to kind of really engage in dialogue with carried so much pride about the incredible legacy of Black arts within Baltimore, and also expressed concern about, the ways in which gentrification and lack of funding for spaces for Black arts, we were losing some really major places that have contributed so much to Black arts in Baltimore. And then I would say some of the other key pieces that came up was artist development and mentorship. As a poet myself, I know that my own development and my growth has come so much from other Black poets who really have dedicated their own time and energy to being like, hey, you should read this book, or even looking over my own work and helping me navigate things around contracts and trademarks and understanding the value and the worth of my work, and knowing that I had a place to go to where, I wouldn't be overlooked, or I didn't have to worry about someone trying to put one over on me. Right. And so these were definitely all things that came up, in addition to kind of just needing more resources, and also needing additional spaces just to kind of practice the work. Right. And then also protection of Baltimore's Black artist history. As I spoke to before, I loved just hearing about the pride and the sense of legacy that folks have of Baltimore's Black artist history. And then also, really hearing from folks this concern around, like, how are we going to pass down this information? How are we going to protect this legacy? And what is it we can do as a community to really make sure that this history isn't forgotten or lost, right? And then finally, perceptions around community safety. And so, I think during the conversation that we'll have with Brianna, and then we also have Rashim, who'll be joining us a little bit later on, we'll kind of talk about some of the different nuances of that conversation and things that emerged. Brianna, is there anything else that you want to add in regards to this section, or anything that comes up for you?
No, I think that was a great synopsis of our findings and a great, surmise of the process. I do want to take a second for those of you who don't have information, just history and context about the Black Arts District, just take a second and talk about who we are to contextualize this conversation. So the Black Arts District was established in 2019 as a result of the organizing efforts of a community-led coalition in West Baltimore. It is one of 4 arts and entertainment districts in Baltimore City, but it is currently the only arts and entertainment district dedicated to the celebration, promotion, and support of Black creatives and their cultural production. The district's boundaries include 149 acres in West Baltimore, primarily along the Pennsylvania Avenue business corridor. And the legacy of Pennsylvania Avenue is one of prominence, right? As it was once a hub for Black artists and entertainers in a time when many venues were not amenable to Black creatives. And so the Avenue really was a home for, over 40 different theaters and performance venues. And we're now looking to honor that rich legacy and build towards a better future. Our mission statement as the Black Arts District is to continue the revitalization efforts in West Baltimore through culture, arts, and entertainment. So I'm super excited that we are in the midst of a process to really finalize what that vision looks like, and an implementation strategy for the vision and the goals of the district over the next 5 years, and figuring out how we can really bring the wants and needs and ambitions from community and stakeholders to fruition as it relates to the work that we intend to do. So again, thank you so much, Saida, for joining us and helping us navigate through this process.
I keep forgetting I'm on mute. Yeah, it was a joy to do it. And I think just to be around so many other amazing Black organizers, cultural workers, artists who all have really, really strong opinions was dope. And yeah, I really loved it. So I've been really excited about this conversation ever since we set the date to just kind of talk about this. So I know that we'll have Rashim joining us in a bit, who is the board chair. But I was thinking that maybe we could kind of just dive into the conversation. And just for folks out there, I thought that probably the best way to do this was, rather than just doing a PowerPoint, which I hate, was for us just to be in conversation about kind of what came up for us and our perspectives around the data that was gathered. So I'd really just kind of love to start off with what were, for us just talking a little bit about what our hopes were for the community engagement process.
Yeah, I guess going into it, I really was just hoping that the process would yield one, a way for us to be more connected to folks across Baltimore, right? So use it as an opportunity to really connect and build with folks who we may not have already had previous relationships with, but we should, right? As a new organization, it's really hard sometimes to make those connections or figure out who you should be connected to. So a part of this process, I was really hopeful that we could hear from folks that we had not heard from before and really get some insightful feedback about what people's dreams are for the Black Arts District. I was also, really hopeful that we could get it right. And when I say get it right, that can mean a ton of different things. But I think oftentimes, you have organizations that are doing good work, right? But sometimes they don't do the work of engaging their community, their constituents, the people who they say that they're trying to serve, and making sure that they are really doing what folks need or want, right? Sometimes we kind of think for or speak on behalf of others. And I really wanted to make sure that in trying to get it right, that included talking to a number of people who we intend to serve and really trying to incorporate their aspirations for the district. So, I was really hopeful that we could get it right and at least do our best and be transparent about the process and have it be a flexible and amenable process that, in places or times when we get it wrong, that we could take the feedback and try to, fix it and amend it as we go along. So, I would say those two things.
That's real. I mean, I would say, like, I totally agree with everything you're saying. Like, I know that came up for me a lot, right? Like, as we had these different meetings, and as we got responses into the survey, my hope always is that nothing would be a surprise to y'all, right? And even in the moments where I was surprised, you never were, which was really which really, I think, spoke to me kind of like what's at the heart of these kind of processes, right? Like, it's really about making sure that the communities that we're in partnership with really see themselves and their visions in lockstep with the mission of the organization. And I think that's something that was definitely one, what I hoped for, and two, definitely what I witnessed. And I would say the other big piece, which actually I think, Brianna, I'm copying your answer as well, is just that there would be a sense of community, right? So as we did this, this would be an opportunity or really a space for folks to come together, to build, and to feel a deeper sense of connection with each other. So, and that's my hippie social worker side coming out of me. I wanted everybody to love each other. So yeah, I would say those things were kind of the biggest pieces.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
So next up is just were there any and I feel like this goes into the perfectly into the next question. Were there any findings that surprised you?
It's funny because you mentioned, right, in the hopes that there were moments where things surprised you and you were like, Brianna's not surprised. And so, it's interesting because I think, one, as an artist born and raised in Baltimore, been a full-time artist for several years, there are a lot of things that came out of conversations that I have said myself, that I have felt myself, that I have been like, why isn't there anybody working to change this, right? So a lot of those things I think came out, and it just wasn't shocking because either I had been in conversation with folks before where they had said it, or I had been thinking about it myself. I think also in the preparation for establishing the district with the coalition, we got like 5,000 signatures on our petition. And we went and talked to a whole lot of people. And we had a whole lot of listening sessions just in the creation of the district. So again, there were a lot of just recurring themes of things that I had heard a number of times. So there wasn't many things that were surprising in that regard. But one of the things that I did hear, and no matter how many times I hear it, it is still a little jarring or shocking for me. And it is that so many people, they comment on like the, public safety aspect or a perception of perceived like danger, right? Or, the narrative about West Baltimore being a deterrent for events, programs, or the existence of an arts district in West Baltimore. And it's surprising because oftentimes I find that it's individuals who were born and raised in these same neighborhoods or have family that they frequently visit in these neighborhoods, or, the list goes on. And so the reason why it's jarring is because I find myself in this weird space where it's like, how do we honor the communities and work to, revitalize the communities that we hold dear and love, while also combating this notion of folks like, yeah, but I don't want to do work in this particular community, right? And so it's this weird space to be in, and I think, unfortunately, it's something that we hear often, and it's one of those very nuanced type of conversations that you have to, walk that tightrope and figure out how do you intentionally address this issue with care, in a way that definitely honors people's feelings, that acknowledges a longstanding history of whatever has happened and people's lived experience, while also recognizing that we have to move and make changes and make sure our communities are as vibrant and amazing and healthy as they can be, right? So I think that was one of the biggest things that was like a shocker, but not a shocker, but I'm always grappling with that. I also, I was kind of shocked that the lion's share of individuals that responded to our surveys and participated in our focus groups were performing artists. And, I'm just curious, is it, related to the fact that a lot of the staff at the Black Arts District are also performing artists? So these might be people that we have more natural connections with. Is it just a larger community of performing artists in Baltimore, right? I was just curious about the kinds of folks who were responding and what that means and how we can be responsive to that. Does it mean we need to go out and look for different kinds of artists than the ones that just are connected to us? So those were two things that, I'll stop there, but those are two things that jumped out to me.
Yeah, it was, so I definitely, in the first storytelling session that we did, where there was a pretty strong and I would say heated conversation, right, about like community safety and what safety means, right? Like, I don't know if you remember, but like Scooby-Doo, like I feel like would have that reaction of like, what? Like, and I felt like, I managed to keep my therapist face on, but I had that reaction a lot when I heard folks talking about like not wanting to do events in areas that, were considered more Black, right? And like really kind of struggling with that, right? Like, and what does that mean for us as Black folks? Like when we express discomfort about being in Black spaces, right? And like what's really there. And then also, struggling kind of like with some of the conversations that happened around like policing and surveillance, right? And, I understand on some levels, like why it is we go to like, well, if we want to be safe, we go to the police, while also really kind of wanting to say like, well, we actually know when we call police, for Black folks, a lot of the times we end up being less safe. Right. So what does it mean for us as Black people and Black artists to imagine a different way of being, or what could safety look like that does not involve police? Right. So that was definitely, I think, a really tense moment. And you could definitely see a lot of people getting into their feelings. Right.
Yeah. And it's interesting because to that point, another thing that, came up for me was, in addition to, the conversation around, do we involve police to increase public safety or et cetera? And when you said, what does, safety look like, right? It makes me think oftentimes it means less of the kinds of events where we would frequent, because these are the loud and rambunctious events that most people would say, oh, I don't want to happen in my neighborhood because that doesn't feel safe, that doesn't feel comfortable, that doesn't, and so it's like, it also, I think, would make it hard for an arts and entertainment district to be its most vibrant self if we're using those very traditional nodes of like what public safety or like a safe district looks like, because oftentimes they do not include us or the kinds of events that we are curating by and large. And so those were something, that was another thing that came up with your comment.
No, yeah, you said a whole word, right? And so I feel like we could talk about this forever, and I would be down for that. But, and the other thing that I think came up too, like as we think about like kind of different populations that showed up or maybe didn't show up in this, is that we didn't really have a lot of young people who took part in the survey or the storytelling sessions. And it was fascinating for me, one, like because a lot of artists or participants really gave a lot of big ups to young people for their ways of like finding spaces, even when there wasn't a space, to like do art, right? And to have places for folks to come together, to practice and be together. And I really argue it's an act of resistance, right? And then on that note, also thinking too about the ways in which particularly Black youth are policed for like dancing in public spaces, creating art in public spaces. And, what does that mean for them? And so to me, I kind of see that as like an opportunity for us to kind of, continue to explore how those populations and groups can be brought in as well.
I agree, very much so. All right, so I want to pause really quickly and bring up our board president, give her a chance to introduce herself, and we will continue our conversation about the strategic plan community feedback.
Hi.
Hello.
How y'all doing? I'm Rashim, Black Arts District Board President. Really excited to be here. I heard a bit about what folks were covering earlier. I don't want to disrupt the process too much. I'll just make sure that I'm chiming in where it feels good and where it feels necessary. But hi.
And you're also an artist in the city, yeah?
Say that again.
I said, and you're also a practicing artist in the city.
I am a practicing artist. I've been a teaching artist. I'm also a muralist and a pan pastel painter.
Awesome. Yes, we love it. I try to, wherever space is possible, let people know that we have artists all up and through the Black Arts District, and it's necessary because sometimes you find these districts where it's like, is this for artists? Y'all have no artists as a part of the whole shebang. So, all right. I think we can just keep it going. So, Saida, I will throw it back to you.
Yeah, sure. So the next question that comes up is, what are the findings that inspired you from the community engagement process?
Did you want to go ahead and chime in first?
No, please.
I think one of the things that really came up for me is seeing how rich Baltimore City was with thriving Black artists at various levels. And when I say at various levels, not only at income levels, but folks who had been self-taught, folks who had went to different schools, whether they went to Morgan State University for performing arts, or whether they went to Towson University for performing arts. I think the most inspiring thing for me were all of just seeing how rich the community was in natural human resources. That was very inspiring for me.
One of the things that was inspiring for me was just the number of people who were interested in participating. And maybe that's like a small thing, but again, as the district, we're, barely 2 years old, and strategic processes, they're not like the sexy things that people want to engage in. These are not like the kind of, processes where people are running to say, hey, listen to my thoughts and opinions. But I think it says something when, you can, put out your survey, you can invite folks to focus groups, whatever, and people come and are willing to give their thoughts and opinions, because I think it means that they are very much so interested in seeing what the possibilities for that organization, for that initiative, for that program is, and that they are invested in whatever you represent. And so to have so many Black creatives, artists, entertainers, stakeholders come and say, we are excited and this is what we want to see happen, or these are the concerns we have, and we have faith that like this institution can be a part of the solution, can be a part of the change, I think really was just inspiring. And it really kind of let me know that we're walking along the right path with what we're doing. And so, yeah, I feel like that's a small thing, but it was definitely something that was really inspiring for me.
I don't think that's small at all. Like, it just makes me think of that quote from that Nika Giovanni poem, Black love is Black wealth, right? And so, I mean, when we did that survey and asked, part of the survey was saying, like, would you volunteer? If so, give us your name and number. And like almost half of the survey participants, gave you real numbers and email addresses, right? And even in like the storytelling sessions and the interviews, even before we could get to the part where we were like, if you want to, you can volunteer. Folks were like, look, okay, I got 5 hours a week on it. Let me know what's good, right? And it was just beautiful to see the fact that like folks are showing up, because like there's a strong belief in the value and the necessity of this work, right? Which feels so important, I think for the work in general, just to survive and the mission to survive. And also like the other thing I'll say that like felt like really inspiring for me was just how many dope ideas people have, right? Like, so folks were talking about like creating artist residencies and exploring, is there a way that the district can become a distributor of grant funds and figure out how is it we can create less barriers to getting grant awards, right? And just kind of all of the richness and energy of ideas that were just being pushed out, like felt incredible to me.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like one of the things that I feel like I would want to add to that too is in terms of the amount of people who wanted to participate, I don't think it's a small thing either. I totally agree with you. I think engagement is everything. I think so often people design strategic plans without community input. And it's like I'm making something for the community without asking the community. And I think one of the reasons that was able to happen in such a meaningful way is back to something you said earlier, Lady Brianna. We are Black artists. Right. So we are the community. We are not an external observer. When you are amongst the community, it's like we are in a space where we're talking to community, where we're talking to family. And I think having Black artists behind the scenes, on the scenes, not just performing and doing their practitioner work, but also keeping an eye and mind for what things are prioritized in budgets, what things are prioritized in planning and structures. I think that makes a lot of the difference. Another thing that came up for me that it reminded me of is the ways in which art is also this is most of the artists that I know, interact, and even look up to are also activists, because there was no separation between a lot of artists and their activism and their care for community. I mean, we didn't talk about painting, drawing, dancing. We talked about gentrification. Folks talked about safety. We talked about building community and in different ways of inclusion. And I think that that is something that is not automatically a lens in the conversation of strategic plans, right? They're usually this conversation around logistics, what is the program, and just that. But there was much more in depth there, and I think that was very powerful for me.
Absolutely, yeah.
Y'all have had me ready to like sing a little gospel song. Not that everybody would be down for it, but I'm just hearing it in my head about like just how amazing everyone is. But yes, I'm here with all of it, and I just really just want to echo everything that y'all are saying. And I mean, I think the fact that I've never been a part of a strategic planning process where I've had such a significant percentage of the people who are involved be like, I will give you my time. I will give you what you need to make this happen. Right. And I think that also speaks to like kind of the importance of Baltimore as like a cultural mecca for artists and Black folks and creators, right? Because even, there are people who are like, I can't afford to do my art in Baltimore, so I go to other cities, but I always come back home, which speaks, I think, kind of to the power that Baltimore has. And then also this other piece around, like, which is why your work is so important as the district, is because it's like, how do we get the resources so people don't have to leave home unless they want to do their art? Right? Like you can do your art in Baltimore and be paid for it, which is huge, right? Anything else that y'all want to share about that? All right. So I'm also, feeling very talk show host, which has been a slight dream of mine. What did y'all learn about the community's perception of the Black Arts District work and purpose?
Okay. I'm going to start, and I'm just going to say like one thing, and then I'm going to toss it, and then I'm going to keep thinking about it. Because I think one of the things that I learned, it's kind of obvious for me, but it just definitely let me know we got some work to do, is there are a lot of people just don't know what our work is, period. Because they don't know what arts and entertainment districts are, period. they like, yeah, I've heard of Station North, or yeah, I've heard of, Bromo, but yeah, I don't know what that means. And I don't know how that would affect me as an artist. And I think that really says something larger about just how we talk about the districts in general, right? And and really assess the effectiveness of the districts in general, right? Because we're not talking about just your run-of-the-mill everyday person. We're talking about a collection of artists, entertainers, cultural bearers, like the folks who should be positively impacted by arts and entertainment districts, or even like your arts administrators, et cetera. And a lot of them are like, yeah, I don't know what your work is. Like, I don't know why arts and entertainment districts are necessary. What do they do? And so that, that was something that I feel like was almost like a challenge, because it's like, okay, we have to do that work to start to make sure that, one, people are impacted in such a way where they can at least say, well, I know that arts and entertainment do X, Y, and Z because that's what I received, right? Like I was able to receive grant dollars. I was able to find a place to do my event, or I was able to take these master classes, whatever. Like, so this is what arts and entertainment districts do in Baltimore. So that was something that, I wanted to start with that. Like, it definitely was something that stood out for me, that a lot of people just were not knowledgeable explicitly about, like, what is the work of an arts and entertainment district.
I second that 1000%. And I think that is like half the battle. I think that there are some people who interacted with the process off the strength of the people involved, and knew that it was more than likely something good, right? Because of the people in their community that they trust. But that initial groundwork of, this is what an arts district is. This is what you can generally expect from art districts. And this is how this one will be unique. And this is how this one is intentionally designed with you in mind. Because I think in that process, we were not only educating them about who we were, but how that particular ethos in general and how it operates. And I think it was a great process, because it caused people to raise their expectations of what they should be asking or getting from places that call themselves arts districts. So I think that was definitely an aspect of perception that was interesting. I think another thing that came up was the ways in which community. So there's like interest communities, there's identity communities, and there's locale communities. And having a conversation about the ways in which a Black Arts District would be serving those different communities, right? So the Black Arts District as a locale community, what blocks it would be serving. And then the interest community, what are the people in that community or in communities interested in that are Black artists, right? And then identity, Black artists specifically as a community. I think having an understanding of that there's these multiple communities that have various degrees of overlap, Being able to then understand that and position themselves, like identify that, and then know where they are in the ethos of that, know where they are in that entire ecological system of this is where you are, this is how this design specifically serves you. I think that that was one of those perception things that it was education, perception, informing. I think that that was one of the main things.
Yeah, I would also like to say, in thinking about like the segments, right, of the community, so and their perception, I think for older folks who are participating, like the perception is more of, you know, from a historic standpoint. So they're like, the perception is like the work is around preserving the history and legacy and like a Pennsylvania Avenue that was fixed in a very specific time period, and like how do we preserve that? And then for younger folks, it's like, no, how do we build this new innovative, like using some different techniques, creative styles, whatever, to like create this new idea, this new vision. And so I love the challenge of finding a way to, from, you know, varying groups of various generations, being able to kind of fit in the middle of those things and be what everyone needs, right? Like, and kind of being either way, no matter what generation you're a part of, being able to be perceived as something that is meaningful and necessary, regardless of what generation you are a part of.
I just want to uplift. There is a question that came through in the comments that I think speaks exactly to what it is we're talking about right now. And I think it's showing up on the screen. What is the definition of a Black art district, and how will it affect the Black community and artists?
See, yep. So I will try to do this in a quick little, wrap it up in a bow. So arts and entertainment districts in general, right? There are, I think, 29 across the state of Maryland. So we are not unique as just like one. We're one of a group. We are unique, however, in that we serve Black artists specifically, like Black creatives specifically, in our strategy to promote, celebrate, and promote, right, Black creatives. And so that is unique. We're the only one in the state of Maryland out of those 29 doing that work. But arts and entertainment districts in general are used as an economic development tool, right, to attract new businesses, new entities, new tourists, whatever, to a particular district, right, that is typically a part of some kind of business corridor or some type of attraction, some kind of anchor that you can build around, right? So for us, it is the Pennsylvania Avenue corridor. I think, however, beyond an economic development tool, we are really interested in investing resources, opportunities for training and development, looking for ways to build the social environment and fabric of West Baltimore, specifically to the benefit of Black creatives, right? And so for us, it's not just about the business owners. It's not just about, you know, greater revenue for Baltimore City. It's really about the Black creatives, entertainers, artists, makers. It's really about benefiting them, right? So for us, how do we build a greater arts ecosystem? How do we build, you know, a greater creative economy by building those Black creatives? And so we do that through training and development. We do that through events and activities. We do that through strategic partnerships. We do that through building out programs that may also lead to like fellowships, sponsorships, resources that we're actually pouring into artists, as well as connecting them to external resources. And we're always looking for new ways to be able to support creatives based on what they need. But that's specifically the work that the Black Arts District is doing. And we intentionally wanted to put Black in the name, so it is clear that that is the specific you know, group that we are looking to support. Just like you have your Chinatowns, you have your Little Italys, you have your whatever. These are all also cultural districts or areas that are looking to support and highlight a particular group. And so for us, it's Black creatives in Baltimore. I hope that answers your question.
I mean, I think you answered it perfectly. I think the thing that I would add is when you talk about impacting or benefiting Black artists specifically, in addition to the grants and prioritizing the needs of Black artists and speaking specifically to them and them being involved in every step of the process, there's also one of the main goals is this anti-gentrification framework. So it's not only serving Black artists as individuals, but it's serving a greater community. I think we have an understanding of the role that artists play, even more specifically, Black artists play in community building. We are archivists, we are documenters, we are the creators and maintainers in a lot of ways of culture. So I think it is not only about the here and now, but this preservation long term, and also doing work like this anti-gentrification framework that will serve us for generations to come.
And that, my friends, is why she's the board president. Thank you, Madam Board President.
And the only thing that I want to add, I read this art essay by Jamaica Kincaid where she talked about the ways in which art shows up among our elders and ancestors, right? And she was like, yeah, so we had elders and ancestors who couldn't read or write, but maybe their art showed up in the way that they were ironing, or maybe art showed up in the way that they cooked their food, right? And so I think there tends to be this process of not really seeing ourselves as artists unless we're being recognized by whiteness, right? And that comes up a lot for me, and I know there's a lot of class and positional, privilege that I hold. And yet still, I don't think I saw myself as a poet until I started getting recognized by certain white spaces, right? And so recognizing kind of the devastating ways in which that teaches us that, well, I like to draw, but I can't be an artist because no one's bought my work. Or, I like to write lines of poetry, but it doesn't count because I've never published a book, or I'm only self-published, right? And the reality is that if you are a human being, the reality is you probably have created beauty at some point in your life, and you have a right to claim that name for yourself, right? And so, I think that's also a really huge function of the work that y'all do, because Brianna, I remember from the very beginning, you being like, no, we need to be more expansive in the way that we're thinking about artists. We need to be more expansive in the way that we're talking about this and capturing that, right? And I think a huge part of the impact that I already see y'all having is getting Black folks maybe to consider, who've never considered themselves artists before, to maybe recognize that, no, you've actually been doing this from the beginning, and you don't need, someone to tell you that you are this in order to claim it for yourself. And that self-naming is huge.
Yeah, as you were talking, Saida, I was thinking about just watching hairstyles. Can I tell you how I remember even from high school, middle school, the creativity of expression, even looking at nails, the different ways in which Black women, Black girls wear their nails or their hair is an artistic expression. And one of the challenges that come up is similar to a challenge that you shared that you have had, Saida, is one that I've had in terms of having so much vested in these European validation machines that tell us what is valid, what is acceptable, what is art. And art has become this space wherein, one, art and artists are separated from each other, right? There are spaces and rooms wherein I've realized that my art is welcome into, that my voice is not welcome into. And I think that says something. And also having a space that says that your art is valid, your art is valuable. And then I know also in the art world, there is this level of gatekeeping around whose art gets to be seen, whose art is considered real art. Dismantling all of that is some of the work. And I just wanted to kind of speak and build on that.
Preach. I'm about to take out my tambourine, y'all.
Ashe.
So we're actually rounding up to one of the last questions. What opportunities and challenges emerge from the process and the findings?
Yeah, I will start. So again, one of the things I think that was happening was, an affirmation in some of the things that I think myself and my team were already thinking about, but we didn't know how community would respond to some of these things. But hearing some feedback, I think it presented both challenges and opportunities. And so I'll give 2 examples that I think actually are just really tied together. But there was a lot of conversation about spaces dedicated to Black art that are autonomous in such a way that Black artists or creatives won't have to sort of beg as they would have in other spaces to be able to present whatever kind of events or programs or artwork that they want to, because it's a space that is already welcoming of who they are entirely as a Black creative, and not just, like different parts of them, right? And so for me, that presented this beautiful opportunity, because as a district, we are currently in the process of launching a capital campaign to build a new art center in West Baltimore that is, intended to do just this, be an autonomous space for us, where we are able to, house different types of large scale events, where we are able to train and develop burgeoning artists so that they're able to professionalize themselves, stand on their own feet, where we're able to, provide a space for networking and collaboration and incubation. And so I was super excited to hear so many people name like this need for a space, but not just any old space, a space that we own, right? A space that we can call home and kind of build from that nucleus. But it's a huge challenge also to, again, as I mentioned in the start, to make sure we get it right, to make sure that it's really serving the Black creative community in the way that it should. And to make sure we kind of stave off the more traditional economist modes of how you create these kinds of spaces that ultimately will make sure that it's not serving our community, particularly Black creatives and artists, in the way that it should. So yes, I'll stop there. But that was one of the big things that I felt like was both a challenge and an opportunity in listening to folks.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges that really came up for me that I have actually been thinking about quite a bit since reading, since being a part of some of the conversations, are the ways in which we define safety within Black communities across generations, as well as across class, right? There is sometimes a different conversation about what is safe from a person who's a homeowner, than a person who's renting, or a person who was born in a particular generation from a person who's born in another generation. And also being a space that wants to serve folk across multiple generations. I think one of the challenges that came up for me is how we are defining safety and safe for who. And how do we create a safe environment outside of the structure that we're accustomed to, wherein the only way to make something safe is to over-police, right? So I think that is one of the things that really came up as a challenge for me, and something that I have been thinking about ever since, in terms of how do we ensure, make, and impact the perception of safety across generations within Black communities, and also across generation.
I'll also say one of the sort of challenges that came up for me, and I mentioned this a little earlier, but I think it's important to mention again, is the challenge of like who's missing from the conversation, right? It's always a thing that is in the back of my mind. And, the question is like, how complete will this process be if we don't talk to, say, some people who, for whatever reason, we weren't able to make the connection? And and that kind of spans that can mean so many different things, right? Like, did we have, queer Black artists as a part of this conversation? Did we have enough elders as a part of this conversation? Did we have folks who are differently abled as a part of this conversation? Do we have folks, Like, there are so many people, because of the kind of work that we're doing as a district, right? Trying to speak on behalf of the collective Black creative community. That just means a whole lot of people with a whole lot of intersectional identities and coming from a bunch of different vantage points, and how do we make sure that we are actively engaging these different segments of the community and incorporating their thoughts, needs, and opinions in this process. And so that's definitely a challenge, and one that we are just going to consistently be tackling and adjusting. But it's something that definitely is still always, playing in the back of my head.
Yeah, I think it definitely was hard, exacerbated, I would say, because of the fact that we're living through multiple pandemics, right? Like normally when I do a community engagement process, like I go to the community, right? Like we're doing sessions like in person. I make some, well, maybe not always roti because roti takes forever, but like I make some curry and rice for folks, So as like we're talking to each other, like we're eating and like we're building community in a different way. And because we didn't have access to that, right? It was all about like kind of like relying on pre-existing relationships and hoping that folks will bring people in, which I definitely think happened. But that was definitely a challenge, I think, in this particular way. And I would say the other thing that came up for me, it was funny. A lot of folks talked about needing a space where they could make mistakes, where they could just try some really wild stuff. And not worry about the bottom line, not worry, like what would the impact of it be, right? And it made me think back to this one time. I was like facilitating a group and I asked a group of young Black folks, like, tell me about a world where Black people would be free. And this one young Black girl said, a world where it's okay for Black people to make mistakes. And I was like, wow, that's like a theme. It's like a thread throughout all of this, right? Like, what does it mean to like make sure that, Black creatives feel like they have that space to like just try some really wild, audacious stuff and not worry about like what the impact will be of it. And so that just felt like a really, for me, it felt like a very tender piece, as we continue this conversation. So I can't believe it, but like we're almost to the end of this incredible conversation. Before we just close out of this discussion, is there anything else that y'all would like to share, or any other thoughts or feedback that are coming up?
I think go ahead, Executive Director.
Oh, no. So I'm going to pass it right to you. I just want to say, for those who are listening on YouTube or Facebook, if you have any other questions or comments that you would like us to answer before we wrap this up, this would be the time to go ahead and put them in the comments. We'll flash them across the screen and try to answer any questions that you have.
I think one of the things that I just, as a final thought, that I feel like is still something that we've been saying throughout the entire process, are the ways in which we are of the community. We are part of the community. This work goes beyond just the art, the creation of art. This is community centered, and we cannot do this work without you. We need you. Yeah, and then I'll pass it on to Lady Brianna.
That was great. I don't know if I have anything to add. I just, a huge thank you for those of you who are a part of this process and are listening right now, or will be listening when it is not live, as it is a recording. Thank you for participating. Your words, your thoughts, and opinions are super necessary, and they help to keep us accountable and make sure we are going in the right direction. And I also just want to say that this will not be the last time that we are engaging in community conversations, both as a share back for the findings that we are gathering, but also as an opportunity to hear from you all, whether it be your questions, your concerns, your thoughts, your opinions, right? It doesn't end here. So yeah.
Yeah. And just on my end, I just want to thank, just echo the thanks and the gratitude for all the generosity of the community. And also just a huge thanks to both Lady Brianna, Rashim, and your entire team for really entrusting me with kind of like carrying out like this really necessary part of the work. It's been incredible, and it hasn't felt like work, which is like always the best thing, I think. Rashim, did I cut you off, by the way? Oh, okay. So what we're going to do now, just to kind of close this out, is I'm just going to ask Lady Brianna and Rashim if y'all just want to share anything about kind of like next steps and what to expect coming from the group.
Absolutely. So, I want to encourage, if you are not already, please follow us on social media. We'll change the ticker at the bottom to share our Twitter. And we also have Instagram and Facebook page that is Official Black Arts District. That's where we do most of our updating because also through our strategic planning process, we're learning that that's where people get most of their information from us. So we will continue to update our Facebook and Instagram and Twitter to make sure you are well abreast of what's happening with the district. And sign up for our newsletter because sometimes we share different resources through our newsletter as well. We are soon going to be revamping our website. So next month, we will be launching a new version of our website where we are building out our artist registry. And this is going to be a way for folks to come and connect with Black artists. This is a totally free thing that we are providing. It is just a platform for you to get exposure when people are looking, like people literally calls today. Do you know any Black muralists? Do you know, people just call us all the time looking for particular kinds of Black creatives. And so we said, we sure do. We know a whole bunch of all kinds of people, and we're just going to put you all on our website, show samples of your work and ways to connect with you. So I encourage you, if you're listening right now, to please reach out to us so that we can get your information and ways to contact you and add you to our registry. We'll also be having a events calendar, resource page, a lot of new functions on our website. And so we're super excited about that. Speaking of our website, this is where you'll be able to find the final draft of the strategic plan. If you want to read, the final plans that we have for the district over the next 3 to 5 years. We'll also post links on our social media. So again, this won't be the last time you hear about this plan. And we'll probably do one more session where we just kind of share out and get thoughts from community. And we'll make a effort to throughout the year have either biannual or quarterly community meetings where it's just intended to keep you all abreast of what's happening with us, because this is a community-led process. It has been from the very beginning, and we don't intend to stray away from that. So again, thank you all.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing that I'll add to that is there's all sorts of ways to also support back the Black Arts District, whether you want to go to the website and donate financially, or you see something, that opportunity that we're posting, please share. So as you visit the site, share. If you know another artist who could benefit from being on the artist registry, share that information. I would encourage everyone who is watching right now, if you want to support the Black Arts District, one of the easiest way to do that is share this video on one of your platforms. Another easy way to support the Black Arts District is if you went to our Instagram and share some content from there or some information. And you could do that within a matter of 60 seconds. So in 60 seconds, if you're watching right now, there have been several moments of 60 seconds. There's several opportunities to share. So I just want to make a call to action that if you are watching this right now, if you're getting anything from it, if you know anyone who could benefit from it, or even adjacently, share it with at least 3 people that you know this video, or share the website information or the Black Artist District. Just make it your business to share this at least 3 times.
I love it. Yes. Share it 3 times. I like that. Yeah. So I think that's pretty much it for this evening. We want to thank all of y'all for coming out. Don't forget what Rasheem and Lady Brianna advise. Go to the website, sign up on social media, and share this at least 3 times. 3, not 2, not 2. Well, you can't do 2.5 times, but 3. We have so much love and appreciation for all of you. Thank you for showing up, and have a great evening.
Yeah. Good night, everyone.